All right, how's everybody doing tonight? Thank you all for coming to Downtown Spaces. I'd like to welcome you all here to Downtown Spaces for our first live panel discussion. This is the first of many discussions that we will be hosting here on a monthly basis at our newly renovated Downtown Spaces. Tonight we have some amazing speakers that are here to discuss COVID-19 and business strategies. My name is Katie Scott, and I will be moderating tonight's discussion. Tonight we will hear from these 5 panelists who work in various industries of medical, business, fashion, media, and sports. And we're going to hear tonight how their businesses have navigated through the pandemic. So, without further ado, let's meet our panelists. We have Dr. John.
Hey, welcome to Downtown Spaces. As you said, I'm Dr. John Paul. It's actually Dr. John Fanning. Most people call me John Paul, though. So I'm originally from Kansas City. I graduated medical school in 2013 from Kansas City. Came to El Paso, completed my internship in medicine here at William Beaumont, and then spent 4 years as a flight physician and general practice doc working acute care around El Paso and then throughout Central Texas. Later coming back to complete internal medicine residency here that I complete December of this year, actually. So honored to be here and contribute to the discussion tonight.
Thank you. Next up, we have Representative Cassandra Hernandez. Yep.
Okay. Hi, welcome everybody. I'm so happy to be here and to see more youth in our community interested in business. I'm City Representative Cassandra Hernandez. I'm an elected official. I've been voted into office and I'm serving in my first term. And I am also your youngest member of City Council. I'm one of 5 women on City Council, so I'm really excited that we have a majority of women serving at your City Council. It only took over 100 years to accomplish that. So we've made history, and I'm so honored to be here and to help give you more information on how to stay safe, how to operate your businesses, and to give you more information. To give you a little bit of more context as to what I represent, there's 8 districts in the city of El Paso. Everyone knows our high schools right here. So the areas that I represent is Riverside High School, Burgess High School, and Hanks High School. But I graduated from Bel Air High School, so we're all in this together. So thank you, and I'm looking forward to the discussion.
Thank you. Next up, we have David Chen.
I'm David Chen. I'm a founding partner at GTIF Capital and Media Abundance, and one of the partners here at Downtown Spaces. Looking forward to talking to everybody here today about some of the things that we've gone through as entrepreneurs. And I like pizza, so thank you for coming. Appreciate you guys, and have a good day.
Thank you. Next up, we have Shelly Mozelle.
Hi, good evening. I'm Shelly Mozelle. I'm the editor-in-chief of the City Magazine. I have been in the print publishing world for about 15 years. So I've seen many ups and downs in the business world, in the publishing world, in the marketing world, in the branding world. And, I appreciate you inviting me here this evening. And I guess we'll talk more about what's going on, at least in our world, and more about each other in a little bit. So thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we have Eddie Morelos.
Yes, my name is Eddie Morelos, and I am the Media Relations Director for the Sun Bowl Association. I've been there since about 5 years now. Before that, I was one of the Media Relations Directors over at for New Mexico State Athletics. So I've been involved in college athletics for about 15 years now. I've been able to see some really cool things, working the national championship game the last 3 years. Being able to help put on the WAC Western Athletic Conference basketball tournament in Las Vegas a few times. I also help out at UTEP football games and seeing the changes going on there in the stadium. So we'll talk about all those types of things, and I'm really honored to be a part of this really cool panel talking about COVID.
Thank you. So within a few weeks of the novel coronavirus outbreak, businesses all over the world were forced to operate in an unprecedented manner. Business owners and employees were faced to navigate through the new normal in order to adapt to stay operational amid a global pandemic. The COVID-19 outbreak has delivered an indiscriminate blow to businesses as small as everything from a small restaurant to multinational corporations have been forced to change the way they do work amid a series of shutdowns. And to help stem the tide of the virus, they have also had to implement these massive organizational changes in just a matter of weeks to attempt to stay afloat, with many companies shifting to full-scale working from home plans and others going all-in delivery. Dr. John, you were on the front lines of COVID-19. Could you tell us what it was like going to work at the beginning of the outbreak versus what it's like going to work now?
Yeah, absolutely. So it was definitely a very interesting time at the onset of the outbreak. I remember thinking to myself, well, this, coronavirus, well, this is, what causes many of the common colds that we get, it resolves on its own, and, we kind of go on about our life. Then I started doing a little bit more research, looking back at other coronavirus outbreaks we've had, different, genetic variations, the MERS virus and the SARS virus in 2002 and 2012, which carried like a 10% and 35% mortality rate at those times, were very like limited viruses because they're so lethal that you really they didn't get as big of a chance to spread. Then thinking about other pandemic situations we've had, throughout our history or recent history in the last 100 years, the 1918 pandemic of influenza. We had a similar one in the 50s, in the 60s, then the H1N1 in 2009. We've always had these various pandemics, so it was really difficult to really grasp, the gravity of the situation at the time. I feel like most people were pretty good at implementing strategies at the beginning to wear the PPE, the face masks, wash their hands, but it was still a strain on many hospital systems and on individuals. So it's definitely a lot different going to work at that time. We kind of implemented shift work where we would work, I'd be on for 14 days, then off for 14 days. The thought at that time is, if one of us got sick, we didn't want to infect all the other healthcare workers. So there was a lot of thought that went into that. So, looking back on it now, it was interesting to say the least. And as things progressed, we had all these different, experimental treatments or things that we thought would work throughout this. We all talked about the hydroxychloroquine, the azithromycin, which proved not to be effective in treating coronavirus. Then things at first we didn't think would be effective, like different steroids, dexamethasone, remdesivir, turned out to show likely that they are effective at treating the virus, to where we are now, where we use things like convalescent plasma, where we take people who've had the virus, take their plasma, give it to those who are affected, to hopefully treat and have better outcomes. So it's been a spectrum of thought, and definitely my ideas, and where I was kind of stuck thinking it was not going to be a very serious situation at the onset. I definitely have a new respect for this and moving forward. So,
Cassandra, the pandemic shutdown was something that we've never seen before or even ever imagined. As an El Paso City Councilwoman, you were asked to make decisions to keep the El Paso community safe. What was your experience with how the state and national government directed the city government, and what do you think the hardest decision you had to make was?
So I don't want to be doom and gloom here, but for me, we early on in February, everyone can hear me okay? Yeah? Should I step back? Closer? Okay. For me, what was very difficult is not the city really not taking the virus seriously, because it didn't hit us as hard as other communities. And actually, it was David who called and said, "We're in trouble. This is a virus that's seen worldwide. What is the city doing?" And at that time, and he'll tell you, at the time, I was very nonchalant about, there's no problem here. We're okay. But then it hit my family, very hard. And then I started to realize, wow, the city isn't taking enough action early on. This is late February, early March. It was very difficult. I had to vote to shut down the city. I had to vote to implement emergency directives. And when I was talking to my colleagues and friends who are business owners, I had to say, we have to do this for public health. I'm sorry, you're going to have to shut down your business. It made me feel awful. It brought me a lot of pain to have to make that decision. But I knew in order to overcome this pandemic, those decisions had to come from both leaders. We should have done it before the state issued those mandates. We could have prevented this early on by taking proactive measures to shut down the city and the economy early on, so that we could have seen that curve decrease significantly, and we didn't, because it was very controversial. The thought of a mask mandate was frowned upon. That was one of the comments some of my colleagues would make. If we shut down bars, if we shut down restaurants, what's next? Are we going to require everyone to wear masks? So that was the kind of rhetoric that you were hearing at City Hall and government. And so it was really difficult for me to make that vote. But in hindsight, I felt like it was the best decision for the city. But it does really bring me a lot of sadness to see that businesses have shut down permanently. And so we worked very hard to find a way to save our businesses that were hurting through the pandemic. But I'm also very proud that myself and some members of council said, we need to lead the state, we need to lead by example, and we needed to implement that as soon as we could. And when we did that, immediately the school shut down. They followed suit. Everybody, it was a ripple effect, it was a snowball effect, and this was all driven not by politics, but by public health experts, and so that's also something we're very proud of. But yes, it was difficult, and I think that looking 6 months ago, I don't think I would have changed that vote at all.
David, as a business owner and investor, you had to navigate through the pandemic with multiple businesses. What was your initial concern, and what guidelines did you follow in managing the different regulations of each of your business and what they were going through?
And my initial concern is like everyone else's, which was, oh my gosh, what are we going to do, right? That's kind of the biggest concern. And, coming from Asia and kind of seeing what had happened already in Asia 3 months ahead of time and having business over there, I kind of knew that it would have been a doom and gloom type of scenario based on what I've already experienced over there. And the important part is when you're doing these type of businesses, you have to balance your ability to care for other people and their ability to be safe, while still being able to feed your families and the employees that are part of that team. And that's a very difficult decision. So depending on what we're trying to do, we would obviously implement more cleaning policies, train our employees, train our staff, and then we had to make changes. I mean, we really kind of put a lot of, on the food side, we did a lot of Uber Eats and favors, so that at least continue the brand to build. On this side here at Downtown Spaces, we're open, we're doing what we can do as best. Every industry is different, and how you work around is important, but having faith and being able to have faith and making your employees believe that you're going to be okay is probably the most important thing to keep the morale up. So if you start faltering, so will everyone else. So that was kind of a main thing that we were trying to do, is making sure that we were keeping the morale as high as we could.
Thank you. Shelly, the City Magazine is a must-have in all businesses around El Paso. With the outbreak of the coronavirus, what challenges did you foresee happening with the magazine and with your clientele?
Well, I think initially when we all realized this was serious and it was important and it was happening whether we wanted it to or not, there were times when each one of us wanted to blink our eyes and pretend this wasn't going on, but reality slapped us in the face. And so I had to, as an entrepreneur with 15 employees, I had to make a very quick decision, and I had to let all 15 of my employees go. And it was hard. I reached out to David the very minute I made the announcement to my team. I reached out to David and said, wow, we're in a pickle here, and it's going to be a pickle because, as some of you might know, I had a very large space next door, and I was with you almost 3 years, and a big commitment with him on a lease agreement. And when I let my employees go, it was by far one of the hardest things I've ever done. And yes, I've been divorced. harder than that. So it was hard because those people, they expect me to make sure that they have a paycheck tomorrow. I sought some advice before I did that. I talked to a financial advisor, and she said, hand them their check so they have money in their hand and they're not spending money poorly, and tell them, go immediately and file for unemployment. So we beat people to the line. I had really good advice. So my employees were good, were safe, and they really weren't hurt on a big level. And then I very quickly said, how do I stop the bleeding on all these automatic withdrawals and all of this stuff that's going on bleeding with me financially? And I had to. The thing that was very hard is that I'm in contract with most of you, or a lot of you out there. We're in contract. And so I had to put myself in your shoes and release every single one of those contracts and not go to print. It was hard. It's been 6 months of what do we do next? And it's not something we foresee. You know, when they say have 3 months of money tucked back so you can survive, guess what? It's been 6. So it's been tough on everyone. We've got financial advisors in here that will probably tell you now 3 months isn't enough. I think we'll all agree it wasn't. So it's been hard. It's been tough. But at the end of the day, I knew I had to see each and every one of you out on the streets again soon. Because don't kick me, Katie. I don't believe in the new normal. I refuse. I don't believe we're living new normal. I think we get to go back to our lives at some point. But I knew I had to look at each and every one of you. And so I prepaid for a magazine to go to print at about $60,000. And I have received very little money back on that. But, I mean, that's the gamble of life. It's the way entrepreneurs live. And I think I bet on the come, if you will, that reputations and doing right by people ends up coming back to you in a good way.
Eddie, for the first time ever in U.S. history, sports shut down. All of them. What were your initial thoughts on the virus outbreak? And did you think that the virus would be cleared by the time the Sun Bowl came around?
Yeah, it was very surreal when it all went down. I remember the day very vividly and clearly. I was, again, I mentioned about working the WAC, the Western Athletic Basketball Tournament in Las Vegas, Nevada. And I was there doing that at that time. And we got through one full day of games, for basketball games. And right after I got done working, I went to the workout room there in the hotel and was watching everything happen, just update after update after update. You know, the virus is spreading, talks of sports, the conference basketball tournaments all around the country shutting down. And then all of a sudden we wake up and there's sure enough some conference tournaments shut down. And I get to the arena there in Las Vegas and we're waiting. They're in meetings as we're waiting to work a basketball game. The basketball teams came out, started warming up. They came out of the meeting and they said, no more tournament. Just like that. Like, you know, I give credit to a representative here who has to make these tough decisions. And thank you guys for making those tough decisions to keep us safe. And that's what they had to do, is make a tough decision right there. And it happened, and it kept on happening throughout the rest of the day. And again, like I said, it was very surreal. And, you know, as was mentioned by other speakers here, we were kind of nonchalant about it, you know. Okay, we're going to come back. This will last, as Ms. Shelly said, for 3 months. You know, they suggested it's going to be 3 months, and I thought the same thing. In 3 months, we'll get back, and we're going to come back and work in El Paso Chihuahua's game. I was like, okay, I'll be back and get back to work. Never happened. And here we are now. And did I think that this would all be clear by the time our football comes around? I thought so. But now I don't know. And again, I thank all the representatives and the doctors who have to make the hard decisions for us. You know, and again, it's very surreal, but I'm just trying to stay positive and look towards the future and be really excited that we had a lot of sports this past weekend. So that's an encouraging thing for me personally, and I hope it is for the rest of you.
All of these leaders had to act quickly on shutdowns, new regulations, and extreme safety measures to keep their businesses viable. Even as organizations focused on the immediate business shocks, they all needed to plan for the post-crisis world and respond to a disruption for which there were no playbooks. Dr. John, most businesses have been required and forced for their customers to social distance, wear masks, take temperatures at the door, install hand sanitizers every few feet, and even put directional stickers on the floors of shopping aisles. What is the risk of picking up the coronavirus even when taking these precautions?
Yeah, so it's difficult to say. I mean, to assign a direct risk to these things is always like, just picking numbers out. But it is important moving forward to implement, common sense strategies to mitigate risk as much as you can. So every different type of business, faces different challenges when it comes to, putting these strategies out there. The CDC actually has a really good page with all these drop-down menus, and it really delves into all types of businesses and gives kind of specific recommendations, whether it's restaurant, bars, more office-type settings, settings where people are out, working, construction, things like that. That can assist businesses in looking at their operations to figure out a way forward. So business owners, I think, need to look at the environment in which they're working. There's a lot of other great alternatives to face-to-face business as we've seen develop throughout COVID, such as the telemedicine or Zoom meetings, all these different things. But the business owners need to sit down and look at what they need to operate effectively. So there's no reason now, I think, as we're attempting to reopen, we need to start pushing to some semblance of reality, I think. So, and that comes on the employers and the employees to come up with a strategy. So I think, the employers need to be talking to their employees, and make sure they understand rules and regulations. Once again, the CDC outlines this very well. Talking to your employees, hey, when they come in, have you been sick in the last few days? Do you have a temperature? And the employees need to know, hey, if you feel sick, don't come to work. Let your supervisor know. And then follow kind of the CDC guidelines for self, isolation at home. Most people who get COVID don't require hospitalization. So the employees doing the health checks, the employers, and then the employer's going through looking at their work environment. Is this, before we were all set, 30 people in a tight-knit room, is this the environment we want to be working in now? Probably not. But seeing what you can implement, whether they're barriers, cubicles, spreading people out more to maintain that social distancing, are effective measures as well. Making sure you're sanitizing your workplaces, alcohol solutions, bleach solutions. And once again, the CDC outlines how to make these, the diluted bleach solutions for you to wipe down, all the hard surfaces, et cetera. The face mask is a big area of contention for a lot of people. They do, especially these cloth masks, they can prevent the spread when you cough. How far is it going to aerosolize? It can help cut that risk down. People need to realize too, things like the fleece, neck gaiters that people wear, they can actually make it worse. They can take, since they're a single layer, large droplets, make them smaller droplets, and they float off in the air. So looking at what kind of mask you're wearing, people want to wear like N95 masks, which is fine, but that's more for like a healthcare setting, and that prevents, hopefully, if they're fitted properly, from you contracting it, where these prevent you or lower the likelihood of you spreading it to other people. So then the other thing I was reading about too, which I found interesting, that was brought up, is all these businesses that have been closed, for 6 months, laying dormant, now reopening. There's other things to be considered, to look at as well. These buildings now have been growing mold that can pose a potential health risk. The stagnant water, you can grow things like Listeria and Legionella that causes Legionnaire's disease. So looking at all these different factors, definitely following the CDC guidelines when it comes to business operations can take you a long ways in mitigating the reopening of your business or conducting business. And I agree with Shelly, and not a new normal, but in a way back to get to normal life.
We're seeing a lot more options for telemedicine. In what ways is the healthcare industry adapting in order to deliver healthcare and to treating patients?
Yeah, so telemedicine has definitely been something I've seen a lot more of. In times like this, we see, a great increase in technologies, and they're more, people are able to access them easier, and there's a better understanding on how to use these technologies. So telemedicine is something we do more routinely now, but it doesn't replace the person-to-person interaction with your healthcare provider. It can be great for like refilling medications or just common complaints, but it doesn't replace, the routine lab testing and screening tests that we would normally get. And, throughout COVID, it has, caused other, medical conditions to worsen because people are too afraid to get appropriate care. And so we have to think about those types of things when we distance or shut down access of care to people. So.
Representative, we saw a ton of El Paso businesses that were forced to put employees on furloughs in attempts to avoid layoffs or staff reductions. What programs are available for businesses and COVID-19 relief?
So there's a lot. So let me just give you a quick background on what the city has able to do with the federal dollars we received. So we received federal funding called the CARES Act in the amount of about $119 million. Of those funds, we also received additional funds for all of our other operations because we have a public transit system to operate, Sun Metro. We have Office of Emergency Management. So we were getting all of these pots of dollars for specific needs like homelessness, for emergency housing. So we put all those dollars together. And one of the things that I was really proud to sponsor, my colleagues and I, we drafted a resolution to direct a city manager to go back to the community and ask them, what is it that you need, both from the business industry, from our nonprofits, and from our critical organizations that are providing these services for our most vulnerable citizens. And so, I have $100 million, I need to spend it now. I can't tell you, what it is that we need. We really needed to hear from the public. So after various conversations with our Director of Economic Development and our Director of Community and Human Development, they came back with a proposal, and I was just very proud to see all of those dollars being injected into our community. Specifically, I know this isn't for businesses, but it helps small businesses. We gave a lot of utility relief. People can pay their electric water bills, so we stopped any shut-off of any utility. We also gave rental assistance, and then we also gave, applications are open right now, so you can go apply for $1,000, one of those Visa credit cards, so that you can go buy groceries, very basic things. So all of those programs are now implemented. They're open. We're leaving dollars on the table. And so please, look into it. Talk to me after this so we can talk about how to get you or your loved ones that support that they desperately need. But for our small businesses, it was just a whole nother animal. Before we received the federal funds, the city gave $1 million to an organization. The county gave $1 million, and we opened it up for applications. And within 2 hours, we received hundreds of applications that amounted to over millions and millions of dollars that we just did not have. And at that time, the federal government couldn't get it right. It's so polarized. We as a community could not just, pull our money from our savings because this is what operates our public safety and our fire and police. And so we had to say we have to wait for federal funding. We understand that there's a lot of need. So now that we have those dollars, we've dedicated that specific to small businesses. Even if you're an independent contractor, if you're a micro business, you have under 5 employees, we have dedicated grants for you in the amount of $5,000 to $25,000. Our only ask is that you can demonstrate that you have seen a reduction. And then my colleagues here can say it is difficult to apply for federal funds. There's too much bureaucracy. It requires too much information. I'd rather just give up and then go find another means, another way to get the support that we need. And that's unfortunate about working with governments and about getting these dollars. But we do have technical experts who are there to help you. So we did give $14.1 million specifically for improving liquidity and cash flow. We gave another $4.1 million to restart and continue operations for businesses, and then we gave another $700,000 to invigorate demand. Many entities across El Paso who are specifically trying to help small businesses, the city doesn't provide those services. We give those dollars to those organizations, and then they're the ones who conduct and open the applications. They're the ones who determine your eligibility, and they're also the ones that will determine if you have a loss of revenue. If you can demonstrate up to 15% loss of revenue and you have less than $2 million of annual revenues, I mean, there's not a lot of small businesses that can generate $2 million annually, so it does really target our smaller folks. So really quickly, the Hispanic Chamber and the El Paso Chamber received $200,000. Those services are there to help small businesses. Lift Fund was given $8.5 million. They're there to give you that support. Project Vida, $2.5 million, and then People Fund, $2.5 million. So how do you determine, like, where do I go? Who do I apply with? And so if you are an independent contractor, go to People Fund. And we have a one-stop page on the City of El Paso website. Go check them out if you're an independent contractor. There's a lot of nail technicians, there's a lot of cosmetologist industry, and electricians, contractors who definitely can fit up to that. You can get up to a $5,000 grant. You don't have to pay that back. You just have to demonstrate a loss. If you have 1 to 4 employees, you can get up to, again, a $5,000 grant. You work with Project Vida. If you have 5 to 20 employees, then you work with Lift Fund. So we have 3 major partners that are going to be giving out grants. Again, that's People Fund, Project Vida, and Lift Fund. So those dollars are there. We know it's not enough. We know that there's more need in the community. So once you apply, we're essentially going to go to a lottery system. If we have too many applications, we're going to go to a lottery fund. We're looking at extending those dates because we didn't have enough applicants applying for these dollars. We're leaving money on the table, so it's imperative for small businesses to look into those closing dates, apply, and to see if we can get you support that we desperately need. But that's an example, some of examples that the City of El Paso is doing by injecting these federal dollars to nonprofits to support small businesses.
So the El Paso City Council voted to keep virus cluster data secret and not add test sites. How do you think businesses should proceed with business cautiously?
Oh, so this is so controversial, and this is the thing. These are the things that are sensationalized in the news. We're all El Pasoans. We want to take care of each other. We can't ignore the fact that there are over 450 deaths in our community. Our loved ones, people that we care about, are senior citizens. So we need to be very cognizant and respectful to the fact that we have lost members of our community. It is, and when you start to do a deep dive into the data, what you'll find is that unfortunately there's a lot of senior citizen assisted living facilities. There's a lot of nursing residential homes where some of us may have loved ones there, and unfortunately that information was not being shared with the public on what those death rates look like, where that employee that works there, where they got it. So there was a lot of people in panic in the community. So I led an effort to disclose that information to the public, to direct the public health department to share with the entire city where hot outbreaks are at for COVID and where those clusters are at, so that we know our health within our family, so that we can have that information so we can protect ourselves. It has failed every single time. We have proposed it in some way or some fashion with a tweak here, a tweak there. Hey, how about if businesses just self-disclose it? How about we ask them to self-disclose it? Every initiative has failed. Unfortunately, it was always a 4-4 vote with the mayor breaking in favor of not releasing that cluster data information. You can go right now to the city, to the State Department for the state of Colorado, and you can type in your zip code, and you can find all of the hotspots and clusters within a 1-mile radius to you. There are states that are leading the nation on helping share that information to their citizens because they deserve that, and unfortunately Texas has taken a different approach. So I have always been in favor of that. So what does that mean? We need to be more aware. We need to work harder. We need to wear masks. We need to try to limit exposure to as many people as we can and protect our most vulnerable. So that is what we're asking businesses to do, to step up, to let their clientele know if there was an outbreak in their stores or their facilities, wherever they're at, so that we can keep our patrons, our clients open. And you're seeing that. You're seeing small businesses who say, one of my servers, we're just going to shut down for a week. We're just going to kind of monitor our symptoms. We're going to shut down, and we'll come back in a week. We have seen that kind of efforts from our small businesses, and so we couldn't mandate it, but we're happy to see that El Pasoans are looking out for each other.
David, you have businesses and investments in a wide variety of industries. Out of all your businesses, what businesses would you say thrived during the pandemic, and which business surprised you by not performing or staying stable as much as you thought?
Well, esports probably was the one that thrived the most. You guys know that's playing video games and showing that online on ESPN, things like that. That thrived a lot. We did fairly well. We had ESPN call us. We had the Zone call us. We were doing more events and getting sponsorships and getting payouts from different universities and high viewers, right? High volume of viewers. And that told me that people were sitting at home for hours and hours and hours playing video games because sports didn't exist anymore, right? So that's a new wave. That worked really well. The restaurant did surprisingly well. Fortunately, it was a blessing in the sense where we really worked together. We really, thought of new strategies, doing delivery on our own. We thought about, adding more and more different companies, your Ubers, your Favors, everything that you could imagine. We did a lot more advertising than we would have normally done, just so people knew that we were still there and that we were open. That helped. Obviously, Downtown Space was a little bit of a surprise. As my partner John probably will tell you. We opened this on the hopes of having young entrepreneurs like yourselves make it, because it hasn't been like that in El Paso. We haven't had an opportunity to do those type of things. We haven't had the ability to work together and to share knowledges and ideas. And there's always that weird barrier in El Paso where there's a group of entrepreneurs that want to do it and a group of people who are trying to pull those entrepreneurs back from doing what they want to achieve. So we've been very fortunate to, have the things that we've done and implement some of the programs here. But I've been a little surprised, I think, on that angle as far as there's still a lot of caution. As much as you see it on social media, people are still very cautious and conscientious about what they're trying to do. And I would encourage a lot of the small businesses to understand that COVID procedures, no matter how you think it is and what you believe in, your customer base is still your customer base. And what they want and their health is probably the biggest concern because that's what's going to be your financial gain or losses. And the ones who are really kind of implementing that and being conscientious of that are separating themselves from the competition. So that's what I would say.
So we know that you do a lot of business in China, and many businesses have depended on the manufacturing of their products in China. As consumers are demanding Amazon packages at their door next day, what does the future look like for products being made and manufactured in China?
I mean, when you're doing any global business, whatever industry you're in, right? It doesn't matter if you're in the marketing industry, where you get ink and paper, or if you're in the beauty industry where you're getting lashes and hair, a big amount of production does come from Asia. And so whether it's China or not, what you're going to run into is supply chain management issues and logistic issues. So typically what happens is, shipping takes 3 to 4 months. With COVID, it was taking 8 months. And the worst part about the discussion was you can even argue that your product should have been made first because everybody was switching to make PPE on a very global level. And one of the things that we did was we got to, apply and work with some hospitals and put in some bids that were there. And you would see the amount of masks that were being made, the amount of respirators that were being made, the amount of different things that were coming out of there, and how the world was working together. But you were competing against other countries to try to get the same mask that's built from the same group of people. Now think about what I just said. The whole world is now fighting for this. The biggest companies are fighting for this because of the survival of your livelihood. And when that had happened, I think what people are going to start realizing is when you do supply chain management, you have to have other sources that might be more pricely in your overall cost, but because of time management, it makes more sense. South America, North America, wherever you have to get it from, that was a really big indication of business. And if you understand that and you understand how to source things like that, the next time this happens, you'll at least be able to understand the processes that exist in business, because no one would have thought that was going to shut down, but it did. And that's the reality of it. And it stopped us, right? And now that we're getting back to normal, I would probably, if you look at other countries that are in their winter seasons right now, if you see their surges and how they've actually shut down, that's an indication of potential possibilities that can happen to us. Your winters in Australia, your winters in some other countries, and that should give you a decent idea how to pre-prep and pre-buy everything before the Christmas season. It'll last you a couple of months so you can get through this and the holidays and make it work. And if you're buying things from China, I'll tell you right now, you should probably be 5 months in advance, because the reality is after Christmas, after the winter season when no one knows what's going to happen, after Christmas, after January, then you have Chinese New Year's, you're not going to get any product till March. So I would suggest companies to pre-buy things now and be prepared for that issue.
Shelly, airlines, doctors' offices, and waiting rooms are pulling periodicals as a precaution. Yet magazine sales in grocery stores and convenience stores are staying stable. Magazine print subscriptions saw a huge increase during COVID. With your years of experience in media, what trends do you see and foresee for advertisers?
Well, I'll tell you, one of the good things about what I do is I don't have to reinvent the wheel. There's a lady out there named Anna Winter, and she kind of leads the pack. So we follow a lot of what she's doing and what's going on, even though we personalize everything here in the city. So when you look at what's going on with Vogue, their page count has probably cut in half. Page counts are driven by advertisers, so that makes sense. But they're still out there, and one of the things that when you read about that's important about a lifestyle magazine or a beauty magazine or any kind of magazine you might pick up is we're here talking with Dr. John about health issues. And we're not talking about mental health issues. So in the midst of making sure that we're healthy, we also have a piece over here that needs to make sure that we mentally stay healthy. And one of the things, the magazine here in El Paso, we brand ourselves so we celebrate all the good things going on in the city. Saying that, it was really hard for me to sit and talk about all the good things going on in the city because there wasn't a lot. And I really decided, I'm not going to blow smoke up someone's skirt, if you will. Those of you that know me will learn really quick. I have a little language issue sometimes, and I probably say inappropriate things, so I apologize ahead. There's a realness there, though. But I couldn't sit here and talk about all the good things going on in the city, and when you all knew there was nothing going on right now. We're fighting for our lives. We're fighting for our children's lives. So when we decided to kind of just really go to sleep and go dark for a little bit, it was important that we did that, but knowing that we were coming back, because we've had many, many requests of people saying, I know there's great things going on in the city. We want to hear about them. So we're really concentrating on that part right now. How do we mentally stay healthy and bring you all the amazing things that we know that are going on with our city right now? Our next publication, our first back, I'm so excited, comes out this next week. And that's one of the things we're talking about is who did what in the city, and how important was it that they bring good things in the city and that we celebrate those good things that are going on. And I think that's incredibly important as we talk about what John has to deal with every day. And I sound like a lot of fluff, but it's not. I'm really concerned about where we are mentally and how we keep ourselves in a good position on that mental health.
So a lot of magazines are going strictly to going digital. Does the city magazine plan to do this? And if so, how does that change your production?
So we've always been digital. You can go to our website, you can look at our Flip magazine, and I get to go behind and I get to see how many people read digital publications. It's so minimal, it's scary. I've been around long enough that I think in 06 or 07, a prior publication that I owned decided to go digital because that was a wave. Everyone was doing it, and we did it. Our readership dropped to a 0. It was so, because you think about it, how many of you really pick up a magazine and you read from front to back digitally? You don't. And there's a reason. Psychologically, the reason you pick up a magazine is you need to rest. You pick it up, it's on your coffee table, you flip through it, you read an article, you tab it, you sit it back down. I know a lot of you think, oh, that's the old way of media absorption, but it's truly not when you're talking about good things going on. When you talk about things that are news related, you bet. You want to have it right here, you want it top of mind, you want to read everything that's going on ASAP. So, forgive me if somebody's in the newspaper world here, but newspapers, yeah, are they dying? They are. Is it sad? It is, because they can't keep up with the digital piece. On the magazine piece, we're a lifestyle. We write an article about David. 3 years later, it's still a very educational article. So it doesn't lose its time. It doesn't lose its importance. And that's one of the reasons magazines, when you look how long we've been alive, look at Vogue. My gosh, they've been around how many years? Are their page counts smaller? They are. Is it a temporary thing? It is. Is digital important? It is. You got to be very careful when you guys read digital articles, and I'm going to tell you why. They don't have to fact check a thing. They don't have to be responsible about anything that comes out of print. We do. You look at magazines. If I write something wrong about David, I have to correct it. There's no way I can do that. It's a fact check. I have to be responsible. So as a journalist, I have to be. You can see anything on digital. I'm just going to let you know, you guys, I hope you don't believe everything you read, because if you do, you're in a really bad place. Do we need it? Yes. We kind of went dark on our digital for a while, and we chose to do that. Right or wrong, I don't know. You know, it's like you gamble and you throw the dice and you hope the decision you're making is the right one. We went dark, and one of the reasons we did is there was so much going on out there, so much buzz, everybody was on overload. We chose to let the experts say what they needed to say about what was going on in the city, what was going on medical. We didn't want to add to chatter. But I'm going to tell you I'm ready to add to chatter, because we've been quiet for a long time. So do I think digital is important? Absolutely. Do I think you can base your life on it? I think you're going to be very sorry if you do.
Thank you. Eddie, the NBA's solution to COVID-19 was to go into a bubble. Yet the NFL has just started their season on time while proceeding with precautionary measures. What updates has the Football Bowl Association provided, and what procedures is the Sun Bowl preparing to mitigate the risk of contracting the virus for the players, staff, and attendees?
So with the Bowl Association, it's quite a bit different than with the NBA, NFL. There's a lot of entities involved. We, especially in college football, have to answer to the conferences. The conferences have a lot of control over what goes on in college football. With that said, they're just changing almost daily about what the conferences want to do and how they want to do it. So it just changes week to week. For example, today, I was looking at the notes here. We were talking about the Big Ten not playing. Well, today it changed. They're going to play now on October the 26th or the 28th. They'll start to play 8 games in 9 weeks. This week alone, we are associated with the ACC conference. And this week already, there's been a game postponed due to a COVID situation. Do I know the extent of the situation? I don't. But they did say that it was due to that. So that got pushed already. The Pac-12, again, a different conference, a conference that the Sun Bowl is associated with, they were so intent on, we're not playing, we made the right choice, we're going to stick to our guns. Well, today they made another announcement that they're reconsidering. So, again, what is the Football Bowl Association doing? Well, they are definitely communicating the constant changes. What are we doing to prepare? Well, we are in constant communication with UTEP right now as UTEP has started their football season. And I don't know if anybody in this room made it out to the first football game, but UTEP is really working hard to try to do the right things. And as a representative said, we all need to do our part, wearing the mask, washing our hands, things like that, as the doctor also mentioned. Because the people who are trying to put on these sporting events are trying to follow the guidelines put forth before us by the doctors and our city representatives. But if we don't do our part, that just makes it so much more challenging to begin to host these events, such as our Sun Bowl that we've hosted for 85 years. So again, what are we doing? We're following the lead of UTEP, seeing what's going on there. There's another game coming up this weekend. I get to go work that game. So I'll keep an eye out and see what kind of adjustments they made from last week to this week. And, we're just being very flexible, listening to the experts. My boss, the executive director, Bernie Olivas, is very intent on listening to what the experts are saying. It's just like Ms. Shelly just said. We can't believe everything we hear out there, especially in the social media world. Again, we got to be very discerning of the information that we take in. And that's what these conferences are doing. And, the Big Ten, for example, got beat up because they decided not to play at first. Again, it changed just today. So we got to be very flexible with all that. And touch on something that Shelly was talking about with the digital stuff. We host a parade. The Sun Bowl Association does, the Thanksgiving Day parade. Well, we again, going along with what the city reps are saying, what the doctors are saying, we know that we cannot gather in extremely large groups. We know that. So what did we decide to do? Well, we decided to take our parade digitally. And we are filming everything separately. We're going to film all the floats separately. We're going to film the bands separately so that we don't have to come together in large groups. And then, do this digitally and catch our parade once again. A 80-plus year tradition here in El Paso, Texas, will be on KTSM. So we're trying to do our part as far as not gathering in groups and things like that.
So the Sun Bowl is the second oldest bowl game in the country, having been played every season since 1935. But college football embarks on a very uncertain season this year. Out of 130 teams in major college football, 77 are playing this fall, and the other 53, as you just said, the Big Ten and the Pac-12, are all pretty uncertain if they're going to have games. How does the Sun Bowl preparing with such uncertainty, and what business avenues are you having to explore to create revenue?
Well, we're a nonprofit organization, so we depend a lot on our sponsorships, which we have been very lucky to get a great sponsor in Kellogg's for our football game, the Tony the Tiger Sun Bowl. We've also been very blessed with a great supporter in Oscar Leeser. And he has given us the funds for the Oscar Leeser Sunday of El Paso Thanksgiving Day Parade. So that really has been very helpful. We also get a little bit of money from the rental car tax. We get some money from there. But again, our sponsors and our sponsorships have been the extreme blessing in disguise as far as funding goes. As our representative was talking about the different kinds of loans, we were able to apply for a loan so that we can get some funding from that as well, and that helps for payment for my pay and my coworkers' paychecks, so that we can have paychecks through the rest of the year. So again, those are the types of things that we've done. But again, got to really emphasize that we have to be very flexible in what's going on. Because we don't really have full control over who's going to come play in our game here. So we have to be very flexible. ESPN, for example, they're really in control of a lot of things in the sports world. They are in control of about 30 bowl games. So we're kind of having to wait to see the decisions that they're going to make, because if they decide, we don't want to do this bowl game because it doesn't make this much money for us, or for whatever reason, well, then that might help us out to pick up a team out of that game. So we're kind of, again, being very flexible, being very patient, which that's becoming very tough as each day passes and we get closer to the date of December the 31st. But that's basically where we're at right now.
As business leaders today are rightly focused on the huge business challenges posed by COVID-19, but first and foremost, they must ensure their employees are safe as possible, securing financial stability, assessing the resilience of supply chains, and reinforcing crucial systems to support unprecedented levels of operating. As restrictions in place by governments continue to start loosening, we should start thinking about what the future may look like, what lessons we should take from this pandemic to prepare for the new normal following COVID-19, and how we can enable our businesses and organizations to thrive in a post-crisis world. Dr. John, closing statements. How does the medical industry move forward, and what can we be excited to see in the medical industry for the future? No more long wait times?
I mean, definitely telemedicine offers some advantages. We're seeing a lot of, the technologies, increase at a higher rate than we have before. For my closing comments, though, I'm kind of deviating a little bit because I was sitting here thinking about a quote I read the other day by Gandhi, and I'm probably going to butcher it a little bit. It's something like, live like you're going to die tomorrow, but learn like you're going to live forever. And that got me thinking, throughout this shutdown, we've been kind of paralyzed by substantiated or unsubstantiated claims and social media, a lot of fear-mongering, some of it rooted in truth and some of it not. And what I've come to realize, and what I think moving forward is important for everybody, is taking time to try to understand what is really going on. It's easy to read a social media headline. It's easy to read all these different headlines that are made there to incite some sort of feeling in you. There's so many free educational programs and statistics and different ways that you can analyze this data yourself. And so I guess moving forward for business owners, entrepreneurs, the general public, take some of the time that you spend on Facebook or Instagram and take that time and go to Harvard. They did have, and I think they still do, free courses on statistics, all these different courses you can take. So take that time and educate yourself so that you can look at the data behind these claims, and you can decide for yourself what is real and what is not. So I think for me, that's something I tried to do when I had the downtime, is just take that time to learn different things so that I can then make decisions for myself. I'm not in politics. I'm not an economist. But the more I learn about these different fields, the more I can take my medical knowledge and combine it with these other areas to come up with a more informed decision.
Thank you. Representative, how is the city of El Paso adapting to going digital, and what can we look forward to?
I'm laughing because you looked at me when you said politician, so I was like, okay, I guess I'm the politician. So the city of El Paso, we're conducting all of our city council meetings online, of course, and there's two of us who on city council who have very young children. And so we're really excited to see that the city manager change our meeting times to the afternoon so that we can teach our little ones during the day for, during virtual school. So we're trying to send a clear message to businesses and to employers that families are important and that we need to adapt to the current status quo normal and not the future normal, just the status quo. And so, other businesses follow suit. They're like, you're right. I have 5 employees who are home trying to, we're having staff meetings in the middle of lunchtime. And so people are adapting. And so our non-essential employees are working from home, but those have consequences to our economy too, right? Our city hall's in downtown. So we don't have those people in downtown. They're not going to lunch. They're not spending their Thank you. That we just talked earlier about how I wear white and it's inevitable that something's going to fall on me. I would have done it to myself. I appreciate that. So for now, what do we have to look forward to? There is a path. there is light at the end of the tunnel. And the city adopted a scorecard. And this scorecard is, as Dr. John said, it is based on empirical data, and it is very prescriptive and very easy to read. You can go to the scorecard on epstrong.org, and you can see what stage of the pandemic that we're in. We have 4 stages. Stage 4 being we're at very, very low risk, and stage 1 being that we're at the outbreak of the pandemic. So currently we're on stage 3. Stage 3 essentially says that we're not below 5% of positive COVID cases, but that there's no long-term over the 7-day positivity rate. We need to see that consistently to move over to stage 4. Not every, so if you look at the scorecard, think of it like a rubric grade. We have different stages for different areas on contact tracing. How quickly are we communicating with people who get the virus? And we're looking at hospitalizations and people on ventilators. Where are we on those stages? So some stages we're in 4, some stages we're in 3. It just depends on where on the scorecard you're reading. When we have everything in stage 4, I will be the first one to say we need to start opening up facilities. We need to start opening up certain industries because there are still a lot of directives that are closing businesses. So that's what we can look forward to. You can make those predictions on your own. We're in stage 3. We're getting forward to go into stage 4, but we are under the confines and under the rule of the governor's orders, and his orders supersede the city's. So tomorrow he's having a press conference, and he's supposed to talk about the economy. And so tomorrow, pay attention to the social medias of the world with reputable sites. Don't be fooled. Reputable. Look at the. Don't just read the headlines. Read the whole story. Okay, I have a habit of doing that and making conclusions. Read the story so that you can make decisions for yourself on how to move forward and how we move on with our lives. So that's what we can look forward to. I think this week and next week are going to be incredibly important. It's after a holiday. It is when school started in person, and more businesses are opening. And so based on the data after the holiday and after the opening of governments, we will be able to determine in the next couple of weeks if we get to reopen. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. David, you have years of experience in business. What is your advice to business owners that are preparing for the future?
Don't freak out. I think that's the first thing. I think when you're not even-headed and you're already going through what you've gone through and you see the news, it's very easy to freak out. When someone you know and love gets sick, it's even harder to freak out, right? So that's the first thing I think is keeping a safe mindset, like Shelly alluded to earlier about mental health. I think that's extremely important. I think the second thing is being prepared, like any good business person and any financial analysis that you're going to have, be prepared for the next 6 to 7 months, right? Work on partnerships, work on your cash flow, work on your ability to actually get the product in. Be very, very conscientious about that. Expect the worst, but hope for the best, because that's what's going to get you through this time. The one thing I talk about, and some of these people here are, very grateful they're my mentor sessions, but one thing I always talk about is the ability that during these current times, these pandemics, there are a lot of millionaires and billionaires that will be made out of this. But those are the people who are clear and calm and figure out a way to make things work, as opposed to, it is what it is, whatever, it's going to be fine, or I don't care, right? That's an attitude issue. So that's another thing. And I think the last thing I kind of want to leave everyone with is, like, I always say this too, but we've all survived 100% of our worst days, right? Like every heartbreak, every business failure, we've survived 6 months of this pandemic, we've survived death. We're still here. We're still making it work. So if that doesn't allude to your opportunity and your ability to have hope, that at the bare minimum should, because we've all survived, right? So that in itself is already something that's very credible. But be cautious, be smart, look at the swings in the market. That's the biggest indicator. If the market's swinging back and forth and you're buying a product somewhere out in the world, you will know for a fact that could be a major issue. So, just be very, very smart about it and go from there.
Shelly, with your years of experience in the media industry, what is your advice to the modern business owner and how to prepare for the unexpected?
Well, I think first of all, if you're not taking your advertising on whatever avenue you choose to advertise, if you're not taking your advertising seriously, you're not going to survive. There's going to be 3 shoe stores out there. 2 of them are not going to choose to advertise. 1 of them is going to choose to advertise. I promise you, statistics tell you the person who chooses to advertise will the person that survive. So it's a very competitive world out there right now, and when our budgets get tight, the first thing we choose to do is quit advertising. It's the worst thing we do. I'm not saying put your money with me. Hey, we've got radio, we've got TV, we have a lot of other mediums. I'm telling you, if you're not investing what you have left to let people know, I'm still alive, this is how we're operating, you're not going to make it, because your competitor will make it. So that's the first big advice. David said the first thing they did was let everybody know they were still alive and they were still out there. Why is he successful? That's one of the reasons. It's the scariest thing in the world, especially when you're a small business and a small beginning entrepreneur and you see money get tight. The first thing you want to do is shut down your advertising. I'm going to tell you the first thing to do is quit going out to spending extra money eating, if that's whatever. If golf is too much for you, cut your golf bill. Whatever it is, but to keep your business alive, you're going to have to let people know you're out there, whatever angle you do. I can tell you one of the things that's really important for a small business, and I've learned this, is always be very diversified. And we think we are, and then a pandemic hits and it shows us we're not. I'm an interior designer. Should I be running a magazine? Probably not. Life took me that trail. I thought I was diversified. Guess what? I have a visitor's guide. I make big money on the visitor's guide. Ask me how much money I'm making right now on a visitor's guide. Ask me how much money I'm making on a lifestyle magazine. So I had 5 magazines. One of them's a wedding magazine. People are not advertising in wedding magazines. Was I as diversified as I should have been? I wasn't. I learned something. Oprah Winfrey said something one time, and she said, she was talking about how there are no failures in life. There are just lessons to be learned. And I have to believe that when I want to get really down on life. So lessons are to be learned. But you know what she said? No failures. But she did say, who decides when you're down that you don't get to get back up? You do, by yourself. So that's the one thing that I think, you know why people drowned? Because they quit swimming. So when life gets really, really bad, I just think keep kicking. Keep kicking, keep thinking, how do you diversify? And as a small business owner, I had to ask myself, what do I have? What are my assets? What do I have? You know what? I have a great social media following. We have, hopefully, a decent reputation in the community. So what do we do with that? I have 15 people I have to put back to work. It is my responsibility to make sure they're fed. So we are opening a coffee shop. It's called the City Coffee Bar. And in that, I'm putting all 15 of my employees back to work. They're not doing the graphic design work they thought they were, but they're still making the same amount of money they thought. We open in about 3 weeks. Guess why? Because every one of you like to drink coffee. Thank goodness. So you have to think, what assets do I have? How can I build off those assets? And how can I bring back the people that I couldn't afford to feed, which any of you in business out here know the second you've let down an employee, it's the worst feeling possible. So it's about diversification and about not sinking and about getting back up. And the truth is we don't have a lot of time to whine. You whine for a minute, you cry for a second, you get yourself back up, or you won't survive life, you guys.
Eddie, we hope to continue our El Paso tradition this year at the upcoming Sun Bowl. But what is your advice to business owners moving forward and preparing for the future in sports-related businesses?
One thing that I was really reminded of during this time is we hit a pause and a stop, and a halt, we came to a halt, and then all of a sudden I find myself very busy again, very fast-moving again. So I was reminded that I got to take it one day at a time, one step at a time, one day at a time, because, again, as I've mentioned multiple times today, it'll change. It'll change from one day to the next. And I found myself at times overwhelmed because I was trying to look to the future when the future's changing constantly. And it was really a great reminder of just taking a step back and reevaluating things and constantly reevaluating things. And okay, what's next? Like they've said, keep on swimming, keep on pushing. So it was a really great reminder to take things one step at a time, one day at a time, and especially in the sports world where we have so little control over what's going to happen. A good friend of mine works in the high school sports, and the same thing. Things change. And with that said, you got to be prepared for challenges that are going to come with your sporting events, whether it's a baseball tournament, whether it's a softball. You got to be very prepared for these challenges that are going to come, especially from parents, because parents are concerned about their child's safety, about their child's health. And then there's other parents who are mainly concerned about their child's sporting ability and wins and losses. So you got the various types of parents who are, one's going to say, okay, I'm glad we're playing. I hope we have to wear masks. While the other parent just doesn't care. All they care about is the W. They only care about their child excelling in the sport, whether it's baseball, football, whatever it may be. So you got to be prepared for those two different challenges. Again, with the change in environment, just try, as Dr. John said earlier, learn something new. Learn about what's going on. Really take in as much valued information that's out there. Again, don't take everything in, because we know and we see on social media that there's a lot of fake information, a lot of fear-mongering, as was put earlier. Social media, use your social media for your business. One thing that I'm super proud about, especially during this pandemic, is our engagement level of our social media at Sunbowl Association. One of my interns did a little looked at our insights and our analytics, and we're the best in the business right now, in the bowl business. In all 44 bowls, she looked, our engagement levels blew everybody out the door during the pandemic. And I kept telling my executive director, I just want to remind people that we're here, that we're in El Paso, that we're about the community, that we will get back to normal. And it worked. It really worked. We did some contests, some giveaways, just anything to get engagement and to remind people about the Sun Bowl and all our events that we do. So if you are in the sports business, really take advantage of your social media and promote the positives that are going on, and inform your participants about rules and policies. Inform them. You really take advantage of social media. So those are the few things that I would advise anybody going into sports businesses.
The world has in no doubt been in a variable state of chaos. What's more, this chaos has sparked a major social, economic, and technological transformation that is playing out right before our eyes. Clearly, we won't revert back to our old ways of living, working, or doing business once the worst of this crisis has passed. Tomorrow is certain to be different, which is why we must start reframing the future for today. So we do have a few minutes for questions from our audience. If you have a question, feel free to ask. Anybody? Yeah, don't be shy. Oh, yep.
You mean when COVID first started? I mean, I think the belief that, honestly, the belief that you're going to survive. I think we're so hard on ourselves when we look at numbers. We're so hard on ourselves when we look at our engagements. We're so hard on ourselves when business isn't what it was a year ago. And the reality is, the one thing I want to tell everyone is it'll be okay as long as you want it to be okay, right? And I think that inspires people because you need that hope. You need that hope more now than ever in this type of business, and your hope is actually helping other people gain hope. And you in a business, if you don't have hope, your clients can tell. Your employees can tell. Your team can tell. It's so obvious. And I think as leaders in the industry, you're going to have to suck it up on yourself and really come out there with a really big smile when you are really concerned about what's going to happen to you. But that's life. That's just how life always works. So I think if you continuously have a positive and smart mindset, invest in learning and understanding, that in itself will be the biggest impact. And that's one thing I wish I'd always done in my life, because it would have made things a lot more easier for me down the road.
Any other questions? Audience? Okay, yes. Thank you. Any other questions? Oh, yes.
Give the secrets away, Jeremy. Come on. I'm just kidding. I said we can't give the secrets away to you. No, I'm just kidding. Just joking.
Well, I think David already touched on one big opportunity that he's taken advantage of is online. The online stuff, like esports, those types of things like that. We got to look at the different types of things that we can do where we don't have to come together as groups. The digital stuff, even digital advertising maybe. Maybe that's an opportunity. I got to think outside the box once again. What is it? Here's an opportunity to make money. Look, I mean, it's sports and, pride and safety all in one thing. So, so again, I mean, you gotta think outside the box, and we have people like Mr. David here who are great thinkers outside the box, and you just got to connect with certain people like that and find those amazing opportunities where we can still remain safe and hopefully overcome this together.
I think one of the things that people try to do is like you have to anticipate people's needs even before they need it. I mean,
found in our surveys to small businesses, they don't have a platform online. They don't have a way to sell their goods and services online. And so one of the big efforts with the city was to give dollars to organizations so that they can give that service for you for free. I mean, of course, you have to purchase your own domain, but to think about that could be very daunting. And so what we found is that was the number one kind of very low-hanging fruit, basic necessity is like, how do we just go online and then sell our services? And so I think that's also an opportunity, is to expand your digital world.
I think there was a missed opportunity, and I've kicked myself way too late. I wish that I would have started manufacturing dog leashes and anything dog-related, because I don't know about you guys, but in our neighborhood, we had people walking every single day talking about, hey, where'd you get that collar? Where'd you get... Those were things that I look back and think, if ever this happens, God forbid, I'm going to be ahead of the game on the dog leashes and those kind of things that really we think about, that people have now become reacquainted with their children. Yay. So what kind of industry could that lead into? Reacquainted with the animals that were always in the backyard that no longer are. So it is a point, and I think it comes to, we just have to remove bits and pieces of pride, because we think, we're educated. My degree is in interior design. I should have been designing dog leashes. So there's always those missed opportunities that if in the future we hit this again, I'm going to tell you what, pride will not be in my way. I will be out with signs in my front yard of things that I know that there is an immediate need for.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Shelly, that's so funny, because the number one complaint I'm receiving in my office is my next door neighbor's dog and my residential dog. They're pooping all over my lawn. How do I stop this? Is it illegal? And it's like, wow, I mean, this is what we've come to.
What a big problem to have.
So the little doggy pouches definitely is important. But you are seeing a lot of innovative sales. Like if you go to the Dollar Tree, you'll see the new Halloween baskets that have a stick. So it looks like kind of like a selfie stick, but there's a basket at the end. And I'm like, oh, it's a COVID Halloween basket. I mean, so yeah, there's definitely a lot of opportunity.
There is.
And I would add too, looking at traditional investments, the sectors that have taken a huge hit, hotel chains, airlines, they will come back. I promise. Yeah. So these companies will weather the storm. They're trading at, all-time lows or 10-year lows. I haven't looked at the market recently. Now, that's not within the realm of entrepreneurship, but if you have the money to invest in those businesses, it's not a horrible time to do it.
No, it's not.
Because Southwest Airlines will come back. I know 8 months ago or 6 months ago it was trading at $22, and prior to that it was trading at $56. So if you have the money to invest, now is probably a good time to do it, because in the next 3-4 years, once the economy recovers, those stocks will be doing well at that time.
All right, we have time for one more question.
Can I say one more thing? I just have to bring this up, and I'm so sorry. I have people complaining about, I don't like my job, and my job this, my job that. I want to say, first of all, thank God you have a job and that you have somebody who's writing you a paycheck. And I think it's always important that we might remember, nobody ever told us we were going to or expected to like our jobs. By the way, it's called work. And if you have someone that you work for, or if you work for someone else, give it everything you have, because they are doing everything they can to keep you employed. And it's not about, I enjoy my job, I enjoy the people I work with. It's about, thank God you have a job. So I have to tell you, if you want to complain about your job, you don't want to stand around me, because that's really a pet peeve of mine right now. I give it to those people that were able to keep everyone employed. And for those people that only worked half-mass, you're not going to get your job back, by the way. So those people that were 100% giving everything they had, no matter how much they were getting paid, those are the people that will get hired back first. And the people who had big degrees probably won't get hired back if they weren't really working hard for their employer. I just think that's really important to know, whether you are an employer or you're working for someone. Always give your day the very best you have. It doesn't matter if you like your job or not, because we're really lucky to have a paycheck today.
You had one more question? Go ahead.
I mean, I'll answer that. I mean, obviously I look a little bit different coming from El Paso, so I'll tell you this much. You have to break the cycle and you have to show it to them. It's that simple. The proof is in the evidence of your ability to work and your ability to kind of grow and your ability to maintain your business. Certain people are going to sit there and they're going to tell you why that's not going to work and why isn't going to be this and why isn't going to be that. That's a typical mentality that we have here, which is why a city of our size, we don't have a pro sports team. This is why in the 80s, when we're the same size as San Antonio and Phoenix, they shot past us. We're a new generation. We're a new ability. We're all thinkers. We're all working in the digital age. Utilize those assets to your ability. If it's not bringing in money, it's bringing in PR. Right? That's the reality of it. But PR eventually brings in money. So to Shelly's point, I'll be honest with you. We've put more money in advertisement over the course of the last probably 5 months than we ever have before, not because we have it, but because we have to have the faith that we're going to make it work. That's what it comes down to. So if you can prove by breaking the cycle and showing, it doesn't matter if you're from El Paso, you can do digital stuff all around the world, you can have partners from all around and still be part of this community, then you've done your part and others will follow. We just need a couple of people to inspire and hope, and I think the people here that spent their time on a Wednesday night sitting here listening to us talk are the same people that want that hope, that inspire people, and they're looking for that hope, but they can continue to give that hope. And that, to me, is a real value. Once you do that, it's a mob mentality. People start following it. People want better lives. People want to make it work. We break the cycle for El Paso, and that's how you show it to everyone else. That's my opinion, of course.
And I think, too, in financial planning, too, you're right, it can be difficult. Where the last 4 years our economy's been booming, everybody's been doing pretty well in their investments. So you're like, why do I need a financial planner, right? But asking, I think, probing questions as well to the people when they sit in front of you. How much money do you need for retirement? I guarantee you ask most people that question, and they don't really know. So showing a value that you can provide to the consumer that they can't provide themselves, I think, is the most important thing. And I think by asking them questions in a non-threatening way is a good way to engage them and make them realize, oh, maybe I don't know all the things I think I know when it comes to planning my own financial freedom.
Also having the confidence. I mean, we should all go to the people who are experts in their field. I'm not going to treat myself when I'm sick. I'm going to call Dr. And that's the way it is. So you have to be the expert in your field, and you have to do whatever it takes to build that reputation. And when you're speaking with someone, don't feel like you don't have the confidence to be able to say, this is what I do. I'm an expert in this field. I'm studied in this. This is my degree. This is what I do. These are my accolades behind me. I think people sometimes are really shy and not confident enough to be able to say, I'm good at this. I can tell you what I'm good at. Ask me. I promise you, I'll tell you. And you should be the same, because you should work that hard to be that good at whatever you are. And then you have to portray that to someone. And you might not be the person who feels confident enough to walk up, but when you're sitting in a meeting, and if you can't tell them, I'm the best there is, this is the reason why, this is what I can do for you, and confidently know that, you're going to be one of those people who aren't going to keep swimming. So if you're not the best in your field, you better figure out how to be the best, because that other shoe store will be better than you. That's the big key to being able to stay alive right now, is having the confidence, be the smartest you can be. And if you're on social media all day long, I hope you're studying something and not just flipping through trying to figure out what the new color code is, or what the new shoe color is for the month. It's more important. There is more importance. So this is the opportunity for 6 months. Everybody should have another degree. Everybody should be smarter at what it is that they do. And if you're not, shame on you. Start studying again, because somebody is going to be. It's a big thing about being intelligent and smart and knowing what you're talking about in your field and being able to convince me that you're the best.
And just one closing thought. I know what you're talking about. Our culture is very, machismo. And I have a lot of constituents, especially in the Valley and the East Side, who were like, no, I'm good. This is what I'm going to do. I don't need any help. But I think there's a way to use the pandemic to change your message, to say we are in unprecedented times. We need to think about our family, our legacy, and we need to start planning on how to protect them. So there's a way that we can communicate with them. I have to do that just to get them to get tested. Like, you need to go get tested to make sure you don't have the virus. No, I don't want to go to the doctors. Think of our uncles and our fathers and our family. They do not like to seek help, even in their mental health or with their personal health. So it's just about trying to find that message, and then to think about our culture and how we communicate with our families, and then give them that trust that we're there to support them and help them. But yes, absolutely. I'm just trying to find a way to communicate with them, period, about testing. But I mean, you're trying to grow a business, but I think a lot of that comes with trust. Right?
And that wraps up our panel discussion for tonight. Thank you to our amazing panelists for sharing their time, their knowledge, and their experiences with us. Thank you to Downtown Spaces for this beautiful new co-working space where we're able to work, learn, collaborate, and network with like-minded individuals. Thank you to Dead Beach Brewery for hosting tonight's cocktail hour. And most importantly, thank you all for showing up tonight. Thank you for being a part of this, and we hope you come to our next event.